This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Wrestlenomics Radio. I'm Brandon Thurston, broadcasting on demand from Buffalo, New York, where today is Sunday, July 18th, 2021. And today on the program, wrestling is back. Live events in the United States at full capacity are back. WWE SmackDown had its first, well, WWE in general had its first full capacity event since March 2020, just a few days ago. We'll talk about the rating, the attendance, the ticket sales. AEW put tickets on sale for Arthur Ashe Stadium. How does it compare to WWE's ticket sales at Madison Square Garden? AEW Dynamite had a big rating on Wednesday. Raw had its last Raw before it goes back to touring. NXT did well with strong competition. NXT being preempted in the weeks to come because of the Olympics. What's going on with WWE and Hulu? Could another distributor pick up the rights to the next day video on demand access to Raw and Smackdown and other in-ring programming? All that and more today on the program. But first, and now, joining us from my South by Southeast, from South Buffalo, everyone's favorite ring announcer and independent wrestling historian, Chris Gullo, joins us on the program to talk about all of the week's events, live events, TV ratings, etc. Welcome once again.
It's great to be back. Another week here at Wrestlenomics, and fans are back, and we'll get into that here on today's episode.
Yes, we're going to do a different. So this will probably not even be noticeable to the average listener, but we're going to do a different format here. It's going to be all over the place. It might be really good or really bad. We'll see. We have the ratings. I have the Gullo report at the top of our format here, which we might reference throughout as we go through all of the subjects of the week. By the way, no bookings today. We were recording at earlier than we did last week. No bookings today for Chris Gullo.
Yeah, yesterday was a free day.
But you do have a booking on July 31st, I understand. Is that correct? Can I confirm that?
I do. I will be at Buffalo Riverworks for Empire State Wrestling Brawl Fest.
I will be at Buffalo Riverworks. I will be wrestling for the first time since I was in a car with Chris Gullo, and he said, I think this coronavirus thing is overblown.
I did, at least I changed my opinion.
You were saying, I think, something to the effect of, this is all a conspiracy cooked up by Democrats. That's all it is.
No, that did not come out of my mouth.
This is just another Democrat hoax. I think that's what you're saying, right? You read that on Breitbart.
Folks, I can tell you that I do not lean that way, whether you do or not, but I do not lean that way.
Anything else interesting? How's your garden going?
Pretty good, except the pumpkins are crazily taking over because all this rain we were getting in the Buffalo, New York area. So, like, my pumpkin plant, it actually is eaten pretty much my Brussels sprout plant alive. It's grown over it.
Invasive species.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yes. It's been raining almost every day for the last week or so.
Yeah.
It's been under 65, under room temperature here in Buffalo in July. We're supposed to have summer in July. It's supposed to be one of the rare warm seasons here in Buffalo, but no, not so much. It's okay today. It's like in the 70s now today.
Yeah, today's nice.
Yes. But now we're indoors recording a podcast. So I will probably train later today after this podcast. I will hopefully get very blown up and continue to grow my cardio. I've decided to I tried to measure my cardio, my progress over time by measuring my resting heart rate, and that didn't seem to be moving much, even though I was still getting really blown up. But I think my cardio is better than it was like in May, let's say, before I was doing any wrestling training at all. So I'm doing, I hope Bob Backlund, if he's listening, will be proud of this. I'm doing a step test where you take a you take a 1 foot step and you step up and down it for 3 minutes, and then you sit down at the end of 3 minutes and you you count the number of beats in a minute right after you sit down. And so that's what I'm doing now. I've only been doing that for 2 data points here. It actually got worse on the second day. So I was wearing a mask though on the second day. I forgot to take my mask off before I started this whole process. So maybe that data point needs to be thrown away, but we'll see how that goes.
Bob Backlund would be proud.
Mr. Bob Backlund hopefully would be proud. Thank you to everyone who has sent me high intensity interval training programs, including Chris Cooper, who sent me on Facebook, sent me a wall of text, much of which I didn't understand, but yes.
I ever tell you my Bob Backlund story?
Oh, no, please.
So, it's at catering for a WWE event, but it was actually a Hall of Fame. So it wasn't like your typical live event catering. And I'm backstage, and they had all this different types of cake. And at the time, I wasn't vegan. And I'm like, oh my god, all this cake! I love sweets. So I got 4 different pieces of cake, and I'm just talking to my buddy. I'm like, this is great, all this delicious cake. Sitting at our table was one Bob Backlund just looking at me shamed. like every time I took a piece of cake, he gave me a funny look. It's like, what are you doing to yourself?
What was he eating? What was Bob Backlund eating?
It was grilled chicken and I think green beans or something if I remember.
Even today.
It was a very, very odd table. It was myself, my friend Brian, Bob Backlund, and Finn Balor. It was a very odd table.
Was there conversation, or was everybody just sort of keeping their head down?
Everybody was doing their own thing. Yeah.
Do you think Bob Backlund knows who Finn Balor is?
I would think so.
You think Bob Backlund's watching? He was on TV not that long ago, right? He was with Darren Young. I guess 5 years ago or so now. But
yeah, I feel like Bob Backlund surprisingly probably keeps up. Not with everything, but
I don't think he's watching wrestling much these days. But who knows? All right,
but I guess we'll get right into the nitty gritty here, and we'll get right into SmackDown, and we actually have a fast affiliate rating if you want to break into that.
I've been asked questions. This came out Saturday morning because SmackDown, of course, happened on Friday. I call it an overnight. Maybe I should stop calling it an overnight. I've heard people call this the fast affiliate rating, the fast national rating. And why do we get this for SmackDown and not for other programs? Because the Impact rating came out the day prior. I was being asked, why don't we get the, what about the difference? And the fast affiliate, fast national rating is always lower, at least for SmackDown, than the final. I don't really know. I think what's happening, and I could be wrong here, there might be more to this, but I think what's happening is they take some of these major markets or some of these. First of all, I think this is just for broadcast networks. I don't think this is happening for cable. I've never seen any fast ratings for cable, although I've heard at times that, oh yeah, AEW got a prelim number that sounded really good. We'll see what the final is. But I've never seen any real data on that. So maybe that's something that's happening to people that have full-blown Nielsen subscriptions. But I've never seen that. But what we definitely see from SpoilerTV.com and from Rest in Peace, Showbuzz Daily, is we would see an early report of what the network programs had done. That is, in the United States, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and the CW network. Don't forget the CW network. We would get fast nationals for those, which would be less precise numbers in 18 to 49, and we would get a P2 Plus and a couple other demos. And then those numbers will be different later when you got the finals, say in the afternoon. Because SmackDown is happening on Friday, we get them on Saturday morning. We don't get the final. We don't get the final in the afternoon on Saturday. We get the final in the afternoon on Monday because people have to have the day off at Nielsen on the weekend, I guess. So what we got for the number on Friday, the first SmackDown, first WWE event in front of a full capacity crowd since March 2020. It looks like 2.3 million will be the final. But the actual report is something like 2.2 if you round up. I think it's 2.185 the average came out to, because Spoiler gave us an 8 p.m. number and a 9 p.m. number. So in each of the 2 hours of SmackDown, I averaged it out and I said, well, the difference is usually between the overnight and the final is usually about 6%. So if we add 6% onto this average, the final will probably be about 2.3 million. What does that mean relative to what SmackDown has usually been doing? SmackDown has been going just under 2 million lately, sometimes just over 2 million. So this was about 20% higher than usual, which is about what I expected. I put out a poll on Wrestlenomics, the Wrestlenomics Twitter, and when you construct a poll, especially if it's only going to have 4 options on it, you're sort of leading people to think what the correct answer might be somewhere in the middle. But the plurality, not the majority, but like 40% of the respondents of the cynical Wrestlenomics Twitter followers said that they thought that the rating would be under 2.2 million, the final. I sort of thought there might be 4. Well, it'll probably be. When Raw reaches into the nostalgia well, that usually means a 20 to 25% bump versus my favorite comparison, the median of the last 4. So I figured about 20% bump is what they'll get here for SmackDown. And that's about what they got. So, I would call this within expectations. I'm not blown away, but this is within expectations. We'll get more details on Monday afternoon about what really they did in 1849. It looks like they blew everybody away, at least on other broadcast networks, in 1849. The overnight measurement was 0.6. The next closest was a bunch of other programs tied at 0.3. That said, what were they going against? They were going against reruns of Shark Tank, which is usually what beats them, and American Ninja Warrior and 2020. So not very strong competition, at least on broadcast. There's no NBA final game here happening. I'm not sure if there's anything big on cable on Friday night, but nothing that I'm aware of.
Not in the summer.
But SmackDown did well. Yeah. The program. Did you watch this show?
I saw like pictures of the crowd and everything like that, and I watched like clips on YouTube afterwards. As I had a graduation party on Friday nights. But
doing regular real things with your life instead of watching wrestling. Do you usually watch SmackDown? Sometimes
it's usually, to me, it would be like a day after thing. You know,
I did watch this show. I expected John Cena to return. He did not. But that's whatever. I guess thinking about this from a strategic point of view, maybe you think you've got a big card in itself to be the SmackDown, be the first event of any kind that has full capacity. So that's maybe a card in itself. And you got a good result from it anyway. And if you're going to have John Cena, maybe you should really advertise him anyway. So there's that. A lot of discussion here about, and I don't know if you were able to gather this from what you saw on YouTube, but a lot of discussion here on whether or not they actually, I mean, a lot of people did think that they sweetened the crowd. They added in pops and boos and chants that were not actually happening in Houston at the Toyota Center.
The Sami Zayn segment.
That wasn't obvious to me.
To me.
Well, he tried to get a chant going as a heel. That wasn't supposed to get going. Anyway, I don't want to get into an analysis and a review of SmackDown. But a lot of people who I trust believe that this was happening. It was not super obvious to me. So we'll see what happens going forward, especially once the novelty is worn off about being finally back in front of fans, when fans, start I think as Bix has said, having the goal to not watch wrestling correctly. Attendance. This was a sellout in Houston. I would imagine about 13,000 paid. The WrestleTix number for this show as I open the spreadsheet. And by the way, I am not WrestleTix, as some conspiracy theorists have suggested. I'm in contact with the person behind WrestleTix, who is a very hardworking and smart person. But I wish I had the bandwidth to do all this stuff, and I'm very relieved and grateful that he is doing this stuff. His last count was 14,000. Michael Cole on the broadcast said 13,496. He said that at least a couple times. Pat McAfee, I think, thinking he was repeating, Michael Cole said 14,496. Anyway, I think a good guess for the paid is 13,000 here. They sold it out. They probably could have sold a little bit more if they had larger capacity. So I think there's nothing. We'll talk about some other things later, but there's nothing to be concerned about here. You would think that the first show back after 17 months or whatever it's been would have pent-up demand. We've seen a lot of other live events in the live event world here in the U.S. have really strong demand, including UFC events. So this did well enough, did pretty good from a ratings perspective, did well from a live event perspective. Wasn't an instant sellout, but it sold out.
You made a point here on the show where you expect that nice uptick for the first couple weeks, the curiosity, like, oh, there's fans, I'm going to tune in and see how it is with fans, but then that would eventually falter down. I wonder, you brought up Cena. I think that's probably the strategy if John Cena is coming back, is they know they're going to do well this past Friday. They'll probably do well this upcoming Friday following a pay-per-view. You want questions on, well, Finn Balor's here, who else is going to show up? Like, I think they'll do well with that, but then in that third, fourth, fifth week, I think that's where you get the announcement. Next week, John Cena is going to be addressing the crowd on SmackDown.
Yeah. I think there's reports, maybe it's from Matt Men podcast, that Cena is basically scheduled to be there on next week, Friday, which is, what day of the week is that? Just sort of clear for people listening. If that was the 16th, the 23rd, which is where's the 23rd? That is in show date. Let's see here. That is in Cleveland. Oh, yes, that's in Cleveland.
Oh, the loud music festival.
The simulcast with the music festival in Miami. But anyway, sort of as you said, we have Money in the Bank happening as we record this tonight. I expect multiple major returns. We had a Finn Balor return on SmackDown on Friday, but I expect multiple major returns here on Money in the Bank that gets people buzzing and probably contributes to a good rating for Raw on Monday. As the Wrestlenomics Viewership Spreadsheet demonstrates, Money in the Bank, along with Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, is one of the pay-per-views that is really reliable in providing a strong rating for Raw the next night in terms of giving Raw a bump. You may have heard people talk for years about the post-pay-per-view bump, and it varies about how real that is. I think these pay-per-views that have huge consequences in terms of who won the big match on that pay-per-view, that is, who won the Royal Rumble, what's the news coming out of the consequences and results from WrestleMania, and who's got the Money in the Bank briefcase. These are events that, for whatever reason, encourage people to watch Raw the next night. So you've got that factor, besides the factor of people being back in attendance for the first time for Raw, besides the factor of whatever angles they can shoot here, which I think it would behoove them to shoot big angles, and they probably do have big returns planned here for tonight. I hear reports you see reports, I think from Sean Ross Sapp, about they're still debating about what finishes to do or whatever, which is not that surprising. Yeah, I would expect big angles, big returns, probably buzz on social media, and a 20%, 25% increase for Raw versus the median of the last four. What would that mean, though? What would be a 20 to 25% versus the median of the last four? I will try to figure that out now. You have any thoughts on that, Gullo, while I do that?
I'm not sure. Here's the thing. SmackDown throughout this whole thing, the creative has never been criticized on the level of Raw's creative, right? So I'm curious of how much of an uptick fans give that compared to SmackDown in the aspect of SmackDown, you had a kind of borderline, okay, there's some good stuff on there. Raw, and not for my opinion, just if you go on the internet, which, Twitter doesn't count with Nick Khan, but if you go on Twitter, the Raw creative is a lot much more, different, looked differently. Does this do a 20-25% uptick like SmackDown did? I don't know. So,
well, as I said, Money in the Bank. So this is the last. I'll get to a prediction about Raw in a second, but the Money in the Bank for the last, 6 years here versus the median of the last four ratings for Raw. Last year, it meant a 5% increase. Year before that, 10%. Year before that, 12%, 19%, 7%, 8%. So we've got at a minimum 5% last year, which is the lowest of those 6 years that I just went over. So maybe you could say that, well, the trend is sort of dying down, and I think that's, if that means anything at all, I think it means that, well, the consequences of these pay-per-views. This would have been the one following the Money in the Bank all over corporate headquarters. God, you remember that? That was a year ago now.
Oh man.
So that
an appearance by Bruce Pritchard's son.
Really?
Yeah, he was the janitor in it.
Okay. Chris Gullo is going to take a bathroom break after our next segment. That's fine. That's fine. Everyone understands. So what's my spreadsheet is still loading. But yeah, Money in the Bank probably will mean something regardless. And I think there's angles here to do that will mean something. And there's novelty about a live crowd, that will mean something. That's let's say an average. Let's go 1.6 is the average and round up here, especially because you got that low July number that may have been caused by the holiday weekend. So let's say just 1.6 and let's multiply that by 1.2 and we get 1.9 million. So I would say this, if they do over 2 million, that probably exceeds my expectations. 2 million. When's the last time WWE Raw did 2 million? I think it's WrestleMania, post-WrestleMania, as I scroll up here. Because I think they have done 2 million 2 or 3 times in 2021. And the last time, April 12th, following WrestleMania, when they did 2.026 million viewers. And they did it as well for the January 4th Legends Night, featuring Hulk Hogan and friends. I might have missed it, but do you have the WrestleTix numbers for Money in the Bank and Raw upcoming here? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me on track here. Let's see here. So for Raw is in Dallas, right? Yes, Raw is in Dallas. Last WrestleTix count is 7,607. That is a 92% sellout relative to what their capacity is. Their capacity is only 8,300. I imagine if they wanted to, if they had the demand, they could configure capacity at American Airlines Arena to be higher than just 8,300. So the first Raw, not exactly huge demand. This is good for a average Raw in other circumstances. And we can talk about Money in the Bank as well. I would call Money in the Bank at this point sold out, with capacity just under 10,000. WrestleTix last count 9,884 on a capacity of 9,919. That's rounding up to the nearest percent, 100%. So I would call that basically sold out. 35 tickets are technically still available. So
we'll get a similar scene to what we had at SmackDown. It was weird but cool to see all those fans packed into an arena.
And quickly, the reason why I quibble about that's close enough is because what happens with live events, it's not as if there's always this fixed number of tickets that are on sale, especially as the event comes closer to showtime. A lot of times the company will finalize their configuration. Now they know exactly what tickets they actually can put on sale, and they may be holding some back just in case they needed it for the configuration, for the staging setup or whatever, for the mix, etc. And as showtime comes closer and they finalize what they need and what they don't need, they're able to put additional seats on sale that they hadn't been able to put on sale before. So what I'm saying is, as showtime gets closer, a few more tickets end up being put on sale than were on sale before. That's why I say S is close enough. They may put a few more tickets on sale, or there may be these 35 on sale, in part because they put additional low numbers of tickets on sale that they hadn't put on sale before.
All right. Speaking of tickets, we're going to lean into our next subject. AEW tickets went on sale for the Arthur Ashe Stadium show. And what's the update on that, Brandon? This could be a real huge attendance figure for AEW.
Well, it will be the most attended. Gullo abandons his post. This will be the most attended AEW event in its history. So this is in Queens and technically in Flushing, New York. The Arthur Ashe event is September 22nd. That is Dynamite taping. WrestleTix measures the capacity at this point at just over 17,164. WrestleTix last count of tickets out. That is tickets distributed, not necessarily sold, but probably the vast majority of them are sold. Tickets out 15,441. So this will exceed the previous record for AEW which is October 2nd, 2019, the first ever Dynamite that happened in Washington, D.C. It will exceed the other most highly attended event in Las Vegas in May 2019, the first ever AEW event, the first Double or Nothing. Each of those did about 13,000, 12,000, somewhere in that range. This will exceed either of those two events, and it is at 90% sold at this point. There was some pre-sale earlier in the week, but then general sale later in the week. This in the New York market, along with another event happening in the New York market, which is a SmackDown event. Again, this event at Arthur Ashe Stadium happening, September 22nd. Chris Gullo now returning to his post here. He's back. Just keep you updated. This event for Arthur Ashe Stadium again happening on the 22nd of September. The Madison Square Garden SmackDown happening 12 days prior, September 10th. Again, Arthur Ashe Stadium has 15,441 tickets out. Madison Square Garden has 7,944 out. So, almost double the number of tickets out. By the way, the capacity for MSG is about 9,000 at this point. Lord knows MSG holds a lot more than 9,000. But that's what they've got set up. I understand Joe Lanza, the Voice of Wrestling, our podcasting network, has gone on some rants about this, about how embarrassing it is that WWE cannot sell out Madison Square Garden. And AEW is so greatly outpacing them. Tickets for Madison Square Garden are the most expensive, of the tickets that we've seen on sale for wrestling live events, for the returns of wrestling live events. The other issue that people want to raise is that MSG has a vaccination requirement. But to counter that, people have raised that, well, there's been other events at MSG already that have sold out and done very well. Maybe it should mean something, too, that WWE is going back to Madison Square Garden. This has history. This is a big deal for them. This is their symbolic mecca of sports entertainment, Madison Square Garden. This should be a big deal. And they don't hardly ever do TV at Madison Square Garden because it is so expensive to do TV because of the union that I think that you have to hire when you run TV at Madison Square Garden. But I think it speaks to what company is on the upswing right now and what company is on the downswing. And I think all companies, but definitely WWE, are on the downswing except for probably AEW, Stardom, maybe a few others. So, yeah.
All right.
Any thoughts? How was your trip to the bathroom?
It was good. I had some vegan pancakes this morning, so maybe I ate too many. Keep it in professional here, Wrestlenomics. But all right, so with AEW, I actually do want to segue into the Dynamite rating this week. A really good Dynamite rating this week, as they were. This was the one from Cedar Park, correct? Am I getting that, or am I getting that mixed up?
This was in Cedar Park, Texas, just outside Austin. Attendance for this one. This is a sold out event. Miami did not quite sell out last week, but this one on the 14th, right? Fyter Fest, Cedar Park, Texas, 4,680 is what WrestleTix had for tickets out. WrestleTix has a note here in this spreadsheet that we're sharing. 4,400. I don't know if that's from the Observer. 4,400 paid. So there's that. So again, just to keep the context in mind, we're talking about events here for AEW that are sort of half of the capacity of WWE events, but in some cases, AEW is selling their inventory a bit more rapidly than WWE is. But WWE is doing more events and doing them at venues that are at higher capacity. The rating for AEW Dynamite, over 1 million viewers. We have it here, 1.025 total viewers of the age 2 or above. 518,000 of those viewers in the category that matters, people age 18 to 49, people who are susceptible to advertisements. So this was the first AEW Dynamite to do 1 million viewers. Probably, I don't have it on me, but probably since May. as I look this up.
The Mike Tyson show was the last one over 1 million.
I think that was the first one.
Or was Shaq? Like, I can't remember if it was Shaq came before Tyson.
We have 1.2 million on April 14th. And that would be the first one over 1 million. Really? Well, not the first one. Their very first early episodes, the debut on Dynamite, definitely did 1 million. I think the week after that as well. All right. April 14th did 1.219 million. April 21st. Am I missing a date? No, not. April 21st did 1.1 million. May 5th did 1.090 million. So we had, there was a week in between there where they did just under 900,000. So we had, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks where 3 out of the 4 weeks they did 1 million. And then they did under 1 million again. And then they did under 900,000 again. And then they were preempted for 4 consecutive weeks. And we had the 2 weeks here where they were back in their normal time slot doing well under 1 million. And now here doing 1 million again. And notably, this was Wednesday against NBA final game. Game 4 between the Suns and the Bucks. Is that correct?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
NBA Game 4 with 10 million viewers, 10.3 million viewers on ABC. So that's a pretty big number. And I think that's bigger than the games for the NBA Finals before that up to this point in this series. So this is a far better number than they did the week prior where they were not against that competition. And the week before that, they were against an NBA conference final where they did a better number. So it's funny. So what I'm saying is they were against an NBA playoff game. They did a better number than I expected. Then they weren't against an NBA playoff game. I think they were against an NHL Stanley Cup final game. And they did a little bit worse. And now here they are against an NBA final game, even stronger competition than either of the prior 2 weeks, and doing their best rating. So, I don't know. And this wasn't as if it was the first show back on the road. That was Miami. That was the week prior. If that meant anything for AEW Dynamite, you think it would have meant the most in that Miami week, which was last week, July 7th. But this week, July 14th. They're in a different state, but I don't think that means much of anything to anybody. 1 million viewers and over 500,000, over 500,000 in 18 to 49. That is, what does that come out to as a demo rating? If you are of the demo rating persuasion, that is a 0.40. Raw, mind you, this same week, did a 0.43 in the demo. That is the big issue. The week before that, Raw did a 0.41 in the demo. So we're getting closer to that point where AEW is getting closer and closer to equaling Raw in certain younger demos. AEW did beat Raw this week with men 18 to 49. Not with men 18 to 34, but with men 18 to 49. So that means they really beat them in men 35 to 49. So you are, if you don't mind me asking, Chris Gullo, are you in the M 18 to 34 demo?
I am in that 18 to 34 demo. I will be 34 in September, so I got another little over a year in that demo.
I myself, unfortunately, am now in the M 35 to 49. Sorry to say. We're Dynamite this week. 259,000 viewers. 259,000 watched Dynamite across the entire course of the program on average versus Raw's 233,000. So Raw, you think about who are the average wrestling fans. Of course, you're a wrestling company. You should want to appeal to the widest possible audience and appeal to people who have not been appealed to in the past. But in the past, the core audience of wrestling viewers have been male viewers. I don't know if they're usually younger or older at this point, but yeah, that is the majority of the audience is male viewers. So that's Dynamite.
Okay. And then, well, real quick on Dynamite, I know you have this great chart here that you put up with the quarter hour viewership. Anything else you want to kind of touch on?
Well, that's
on
right.
That of what were the kind of the highlights of that?
That's right. I had the quarter hours. All these ratings, by the way, I think all of them this week were broken by Wrestlenomics, including this quarter hour viewership chart. Interesting too that the NBA final game, which started at 9 p.m., I should have noted earlier, it was not an 8 p.m. start, so it was not the entire Dynamite going head to head. Which is the same as was the case for the conference final that they were against, I think, 2 weeks ago. It's a 9 p.m. start.
West Coast teams.
We got the Suns and the Bucks here. Yeah, Bucks would be like Central Time Zone, but anyway.
But this was in Phoenix, so I believe Game 4 was in Phoenix. If I'm like 98% sure. But yeah. So
the second hour of Dynamite was against the harder competition. There was like pregame stuff, and I know they do like the Jimmy Kimmel thing at 8 and a sort of a countdown at 8:30, I think. But anyway, the second hour contains some of the most highly viewed quarters. In fact, the most highly viewed quarter overall among total viewers was what we call Q6. That is from 9:15 to 9:30, 1.133 million viewers over the course of those 15 minutes. That was the 15-minute segment of time that included the Britt Baker live promo with Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero watching the back, a really short Jon Moxley promo, a relatively short Sammy Guevara versus Wheeler Yuta match, and a pretty short QT Marshall promo. So that was the most viewed 15 minutes. This is a show that it started off with 942,000 viewers overall in the first quarter, which was Jon Moxley versus Carl Anderson, then dipped a bit for the second quarter, which is a lot of promo, which was an Archer promo, an Andrade promo, the first 2/3 or so of the Brian Cage and Ricky Starks match, down to 861,000 viewers. And then it grew and really stabilized over the top of the hour going into 9 o'clock, which is not what you would expect. You would expect, okay, the NBA game is starting, we're going to take a hit at 9 o'clock. And that is not what happened. It held up. In Q7, it did drop for the Penelope Ford, not Penelope Cruz, as some ignorant person originally put in his chart. Penelope Ford versus Yuka Sakazaki. It did go down for that Q7. Still over 1 million viewers total, just barely over 1 million. And then it stayed basically flat for the main event involving Darby Allin and Ethan Page for the coffin match. So the peak was the Britt Baker, Sammy Guevara, Wheeler Yuta quarter hour in total viewers, but in 1849 viewers, the peak was with 586,000 viewers. That was the quarter that included the Adam Page and Kenny Omega angle where they made their big multi-man tag match that's going to happen. Had a short Chris Jericho promo and angle with MJF, and the entrances for the Matt Hardy and Christian match that was to begin in the following quarter.
All right, we're going to move on to Monday Night Raw. And we already kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier when we were talking about SmackDown, but the Raw rating from last week, the last Raw without fans, doing 1.6 million. If you want to break that down and predict truly what do you think they'll get tomorrow? Well, yeah, tomorrow night as we're recording this.
Yeah, I think I just kind of said it earlier. I think 1.9 million would be a good over-under. If they do 2 million, I would be impressed. And if they do way over 2 million, I would be very impressed. I think it's going to largely depend on the power of the angle that happens tonight. By the time people are listening to this, I'm sure they know what it is. Whether it's, Brock Lesnar coming back, or Goldberg coming back, or Becky Lynch coming back. Who knows? John Cena coming back. Who knows? So that's what I expect. This number on Monday did better than the all-time low of the previous week. The all-time low of the previous week, 1.472 million viewers. Again, to put that in some context, what AEW did in the same week. Actually not in the same week, but in the following week. Just over 1 million. So the all-time low for Raw, a really good number for Dynamite, is about 500,000 apart at this point. That's in total viewers. Remember, a huge factor in that is people over the age of 50. But anyway, this one for Raw, though, did just about even 1.6 million viewers. So better than what they did in the all-time low. But, this is sort of in line with what they've been doing lately. Pretty normal number for the last 4 weeks. People have asked lately, I've seen people discussing, is Raw, yes, Raw is at an all-time low, but is Raw really declining at a rate that is worse than comparable shows, worse than the decline of TV overall? I know we talk about this with some regularity, but I think it's worth revisiting and going into some detail to show the answer is yes. Raw is doing worse than other sports programs. Raw is, over the last couple years, has been doing worse than TV in general. How do we know that? Well, I did some charts I did some studying this week, and I looked at, let's take an arbitrary year, few years in the past, 2016, and let's take your average total viewership, and let's compare that to how you did over the course of 2020. And I compared Raw, or as Nielsen lists it, WWE Entertainment, and I compared what's the change in viewership from 2016 to 2020. And the answer that you get, if I compare this to a number of other live sports telecasts, in the ways that they are categorized by Nielsen. So we have things like the NFL regular season, which means Monday Night Football. And these are just cable programs that I have easy access to the data to. I didn't try to dive into broadcast here. So this is just cable programs. But we have, Monday Night Football, which is down in that comparison by 8%. Raw is down in that comparison by 41%. The NFL draft is slightly up by 30%. And it's not just slightly. The NFL draft over that time is up 30%. The NBA playoffs, conference finals on TNT is worse than Raw, down 55%. Again, Raw, down 41% in this comparison. Conference finals on TNT, down 55%, 2016 to 2020. Conference finals on ESPN, though, down 33%. Conference semifinals on ESPN, down 22%. And we can go on and on. If you saw this chart on my Twitter, or if you haven't, you can go to my Twitter at Brandon Thurston and find it. But a lot of different sports telecasts that have held up over these 4 years better than Raw has. So yes, streaming is the future. But TV ratings still matter, and TV ratings for other programs have declined, but not quite as bad in most cases than Raw has. I did this for 2022 as well. Again, you can find that on the Twitter. Now, obviously, we're only halfway through 2021, so we haven't had Monday Night Football yet in 2021. But a huge drop for the conference finals on TNT, down to 52%. I'm guessing, I haven't looked, actually, I've been meaning to look, but I'm guessing this is being compared to like a LeBron James conference final or something, which is explained the huge drop of 51% for the conference finals on TNT. But you have other things like on ESPN, down just 1%. For the conference finals on ESPN. NBA playoffs conference semis on ESPN, up 7%. Round 2 on TNT, down 9%. NBA draft lottery, down 20%. College football bowl game on ESPN, down 10%. Playoffs round 1 on TNT for the NBA, down 1%. There's quite a few others, but none others quite so bad as the down 42% for WWE Entertainment on USA Network, which is Raw. Now that's just sports. Those are other sports programs. Let's say you don't want to compare Raw to sports programs because wrestling isn't real sports, and you shouldn't compare Raw to other sports because sports are just more popular and they're gonna hold up better. And you know what? Let's make a stronger argument. People are more likely to watch WWE stuff on DVR than they are to watch actual shoot sports on DVR. So let's just talk about other programming in general. And let's exclude cable news because cable news in the era of Trump did amazingly well. Okay, so let's talk about non-cable news programs, the top 50 from Showbuzz Daily from 2017 to 2020. And actually in 17 and 18, Raw did hold up better than the top 50 non-news cable programs. But in 2019 and 2020, Raw declined more sharply. Raw was down year over year in 2019, 14%. Top 50 non-news cable, only down half as bad, 7%. That's pre-pandemic, when they still had live crowds. 2020, Raw was down 22% compared to non-news cable, down 15%.
All right. Moving on to the NXT rating, which was up.
Wait, I have more. I have more to put on the table about here. Why has this happened? A few years ago, in 2016, actually, I did an article for Seeking Alpha. Do you know what Seeking Alpha is, Chris Gullo?
I do not know.
So Seeking Alpha is this website where you can, it covers stocks. Okay. And you can submit articles, and if your article is reviewed by somebody and they think it's publishable, they'll pay you like $40 for it. And then for every click it gets, you get like a fraction of a cent. So I had done a few articles for Seeking Alpha around that time. And Chris Harrington was doing a few of them as well. And I wrote an article in 2016 called something to the effect of WTV ratings no longer reflect popularity. Because there was, I'm sure at the time there was consternation about the declining TV ratings for Raw and probably for SmackDown at the time. Although SmackDown was about to be helped by, having the move to Tuesday to live to exclusive roster. But I demonstrated how, yes, TV ratings are down, but let's look at a number of other factors here, including Google Web Search, which is on the rise. And let's look at the other metrics that are related to consumer behavior, like ticket sales and merchandise sales. And those are stable. Those are doing okay. And that was 2016. And that was true. I would like to think that was a reasonable thing to write in 2016. So I sort of looked back on that, this week and, pulled out the Google Web Search and sort of, let's follow up on this and pull the data across to the present. And what we see is Google Web Search, sort of peaking there in 2016 and then falling and really correlating to TV ratings after that. Again, these are charts that I put on Twitter over the last week. And I decided to look too, and it's sort of in the way that we're talking about, Raw compared to other sports, to look at other sports leagues and their web search, over time from 2015 to 2020. And what you see is WWE, going up from 15 to 16, but then really declining, each year after that, in a way that doesn't reflect any other sports league that I grabbed data for anyway. What you do see is Indian Premier League is the new big sport globally. You know what sport Indian Premier League is, Chris Gullo?
I'm going to take a wild guess and say cricket. Cricket is the cricket league, India Premier League is, I didn't try to scrape for every single sports league that I could think of, but ones, the sports leagues that come to mind first, that's what I scraped for. And India Premier League in 2020, more searches than the Premier League, soccer, the soccer league, more searches than NBA. Wow.
This is worldwide now. More searches than NFL, which is, of course, enormously popular in the U.S., but not so much globally. So yeah. And then there's this chasm, and then everybody else falls a ways below those four. Again, that's Premier League, in India for cricket, Premier League soccer, NBA, NFL. And then there's La Liga. Are you a soccer fan? Gullo, do you know anything about soccer?
A little bit, yeah.
Do you know what La Liga is? Because I don't.
La Liga is, I'm just wondering if that's the Spanish league or let me just double check here. Because Serie A is the Italian league, so La Liga is Spanish league, yep.
So at the beginning of this timeline, 2015, WWE is the most searched for sports league of those I just mentioned, except it's more searched for than Indian Premier League at this point in 2015. It's the only leagues that are more searched for is the NBA and the NFL. They're more searched for than the Soccer Premier League, if that's the right way to say it. But then in 2016 and after 2016, it starts to decline. Anyway, so we got what is now ahead of WWE is La Liga, Formula One racing, the UFC, Dana's kicking your ass. WWE was more searched for than Major League Baseball on a worldwide basis. Now they're about even. NHL is below WWE. NASCAR always has been below WWE over this timeline.
Those are both still very regional, even though they're nationwide. They're still regional in the aspect
right. Maybe
of fan bases.
my bias as a person living in the U.S., I'm thinking of leagues that first come to mind for me.
Yeah.
And these are the ones that I chose. So I guess moral of the story, yes, I've showing the data here that it doesn't seem very debatable to me that WWE has declined in popularity over the last 4 or 5 years. I'm sure they're amazingly popular on YouTube and on forms of social and digital media, which I think in many ways wrestling is predisposed to be popular on those media platforms. But the trajectory is in a number of ways pointing downwards. You've got declining ticket sales before the pandemic. You've got declining merchandise sales before the pandemic. You've got declining product licensing revenues before the pandemic. Not just related to the pandemic. Anyway.
All right. So now, moving on.
Now you want to talk about NXT.
Yeah, I want to talk about NXT.
Fine.
an uptick this week for NXT in the rating, doing a little over 700,000. 18 to 49 of 245,000. If you compare that a little bit up from the week before with 650,000 and 232,000 and 18 to 49. So NXT, maybe, I mean, this is a little bit different than Raw and Smackdown because there's not the anticipation of, fans are going to be next week. Maybe I should tune in. They already have their small group of fans that they have at the Capitol Wrestling Center, and it was interesting to see that uptick this week for NXT.
This week did better than last week. What did last week do?
Last week did 650,000 overall with 232,000 in the 18 to 49, and that was the Great American Bash episode.
But this week, last week was against was the Great American Bash, as you just said.
Yes,
comes out. Big pay-per-view like episode of TV for NXT, but this week does better, despite not being the Great American Bash, and despite going against the Major League Baseball All-Star Game on Fox that had over 8 million viewers. It's tougher competition. Weaker lineup, better rating.
Yeah, I mean, you did have Gargano and Cross with Joe as the special guest referee, which, a pretty big match, but they main evented the Great American Bash with O'Reilly and Cole. So, but
does this tell us who's a draw and who's not? Is this meaningful?
I wouldn't think so, but I would say the All-Star Game thing, I think that is impressive, but being a baseball fan, I could tell you I'm a baseball fan. I buy the package every year to watch Phillies games because they don't air them locally. I watch as much baseball as possible. When the Blue Jays first came here in Buffalo, I was there first night, and I could tell you that I have not watched an All-Star Game in over a decade. Because
there's actual stakes now, right? Like the winner of the All-Star Game gets the home field advantage or something in the
They
final?
did that to make it more competitive,
World
and it hasn't changed.
Okay. NXT, by the way, will be moved to Sci-Fi during the Olympics.
Is this the first time they're on Sci-Fi since the NXT competition series?
Yeah, I mean there've been reruns on Sci-Fi, but yeah, it will be. Somebody should look up what the viewership was. It's probably higher than it is now, but that's the nature of TV. I don't mean to be truly comparative there. But so not this coming Tuesday, but the Tuesday after that, July 27th, and then on August 3rd, NXT will be not on the USA Network. It will be on Sci-Fi. The USA Network apparently is going to be carrying some Olympics coverage. Of course, the Olympics, the U.S. broadcast rights to the Olympics in the U.S. are held by NBC Universal, the parent company of the USA Network and of Sci-Fi. So NXT getting bumped to Sci-Fi. NXT has been preempted for, I think, sort of in the summer of 2020. There was NHL games, I think, NHL playoff games that were happening in that summer where both AEW and NXT were being preempted around to different slots, but it was still on the USA Network when NXT was getting preempted. There's that 1 week where they did move to a Tuesday, I believe, and they were going head to head with Impact and just buried Impact's viewership number that week. That is, I believe, the all-time low for Impact, other than this program guide error that we had a couple weeks ago. But yeah, I think what we're going to see here is a number that's flirting or maybe being the lowest NXT viewership ever. These are going to be taped episodes as well, so theoretically we're going to have spoilers out there, if that matters. I struggle to think of a time where there's been strong evidence that spoilers have ever mattered. I think you've argued otherwise here on this program, Chris Gullo.
Yeah, I don't think they make a gigantic difference, but I feel, not so much spoilers, but I made the argument that the Dynamites that you knew were live and not taped, and there was no spoilers out there, but the ones that you knew were live or not taped just perform better.
So Sci-Fi, I don't have a great idea of what they're going to do here, but I imagine probably looking at, I mean, if Dynamite granted on Saturday, not on its usual Wednesday, at 8 p.m., I don't want to compare it to the Friday at 10, did what something like in the 500,000 range, compared to when it usually does 800 or even 900,000 or 1 million. That's about cutting the viewership in half or a little bit more than half. NXT doing in the 600s most weeks, we're looking at maybe something under 400,000, which would definitely be an all-time low. I believe the all-time low is somewhere in the 500,000s for NXT. So these will probably be sort of asterisks all-time lows for NXT.
All right. I want to move on to some interesting news this week. With WWE canceling a couple shows. First off, canceling a show in Gainesville. And you actually you have an update from our friends at WrestleTix as far as what tickets were sold so far in that Gainesville show.
Yeah, so the Gainesville show was just canceled a couple days ago. The capacity, this was going to happen, this was going to be a super show, i.e. house show, on August 8th. The last update that we have on the 12th, which was Monday, capacity 3,500, tickets out, 2,000. Is this right? Yes. 2,233. It now strikes me that I may have tweeted the incorrect number. I may have tweeted the, available rather than the, tickets out. 2,233 tickets out. That is 64% sold. This is Gainesville, so probably a smaller market, and consider they're having shows in Florida, in addition to this, right? They're doing Tampa a couple days earlier for SmackDown. They're doing, Estero, Florida, which is, where is Estero? It's near some larger city.
I know they're doing Jacksonville as well, right?
Dynamite is doing Jacksonville 4 days earlier, for Daly's Place. There's Raw in Orlando the day after. So they're all over Florida around this time. Canceling this event. There's an Atlanta show, while you look that up. There's an Atlanta show that was also canceled for a SmackDown that was going to happen. This was going to be a September 17th SmackDown. There was a pre-sale about an hour before the general sale was going to go out. They canceled the show. So maybe that was due to demand. Maybe there wasn't a strong response to the pre-sale, so they decided to cancel before going through the trouble of actually putting tickets on sale. Or maybe there's some other factor involved. I don't know. But no September 17th SmackDown in Atlanta.
Real quick, just looking at the Estero, the market it's closest to is Fort Myers. But
Fort Myers.
It's very interesting. It's like near a lot of like nature preserves and stuff. So I find that interesting. But the Atlanta, why do you think the Atlanta event was canceled? That one kind of threw me off. Like Gainesville, like you said, a smaller market, and we already kind of questioned them doing house shows, and maybe they'll eventually go to that. Oh, maybe we shouldn't do these, and then now you got Atlanta, but for a SmackDown.
This is a SmackDown.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's tempting to say, hey, nobody wanted the tickets. They did the pre-sale. There wasn't strong demand. They decided to cancel it. This is the first event in Georgia too that I believe that they've put on sale. Maybe there's some sort of issue with the regulations in Georgia related to this. I don't know. Again, it's tempting to say that, W is just a cold product and they didn't get strong demand, so they canceled it. But I don't have more information that makes me able to say that with greater confidence.
All right. Moving on to some WWE Hulu news, as the deal is coming to an end here. Terms coming up. Question is, will they extend? And if not, are we going to get Raws and other programming quicker on Peacock after they appear?
Are you a Hulu subscriber?
Yes, I love Hulu, especially for FX programming that I watch on there a lot. That comes up. Which just finished American Horror Stories. They debuted this week. So,
yeah. So who owns the FX network now? Does Fox still own the FX?
I don't know if it's Fox or Disney, or like Disney acquired previous programming rights. Because that's all interesting, like, because they bought the rights to The Simpsons, but
yes, Disney owns it now.
Still appear on Fox.
Disney. Yeah, Disney does own it now. Disney acquired a lot of Fox properties, I believe, including 21st Century Fox. The only thing I think that Fox owns now is the broadcast network, the regional sports networks. I think they still own. And, of course, Fox
They weren't
News.
allowed to sell the regional sports networks because of monopoly.
Of course, they own Tubi, one of the FASTs. FAST stands for Free Ad-Supported Television, I think. Although FASTs are things like Tubi and
Roku
Pluto,
channel.
Roku. But anyway, as people may know, this pertains just to U.S. customers. This doesn't pertain to people internationally, right? I think Hulu is only a thing that's happening in the U.S., right? There's not really distribution, at least widely outside of the U.S. that I know of. So what we have here in the U.S. is that Raw, in a condensed version actually, will be on Hulu the next day. Same thing for SmackDown. NXT is on there too, but NXT is also on the network the next day. Main Events, of course, is on Hulu. But on the network now, which is on Peacock for U.S. customers, you have to wait 30 days before you can watch the latest Raw or SmackDown. So that's been the case for a number of years now, with Hulu. So I've been told that those rights are up sometime maybe in 2022, maybe as early as the end of this year. I understand the last time these rights were negotiated was 2018. I've been told that W management views this now compared to 2018 as a different world for the possibility of negotiating favorable rights deals for these next day rights to Raw and SmackDown and other content here. Will it stay on Hulu? Maybe. It makes a lot of sense though for this to go to Peacock and for Peacock to be able to tell W fans, hey, this is not just your home for all the W network content, the pay-per-views, all of the back catalog, which by the way is supposed to be on the network in its entirety again by SummerSlam. People were promised, in the press release. But that you can now get all of that, plus the very next day, if you missed Raw or SmackDown, you can watch it right here on Peacock. That makes a lot of sense for Raw, at least. Does that make sense for SmackDown, the Fox property? Or maybe would Fox want to somehow put that on Tubi? I don't know that there's any precedent or something comparable, where Fox has got something the next day on Tubi. Does anybody actually use Tubi?
Tubi to me is if you want to find something, from the 90s or early 2000s, it's kind of obscure. You'll find it. Like when, this past Christmas, when I wanted to watch Santa with Muscles, Tubi had it.
Of course. Who doesn't want to watch Santa with Muscles at the holiday season?
Tubi had it. When I, just yesterday was like, you know what? Hercules Legendary Journeys. I like that show in the 90s.
Who's the star of Santa with Muscles? Is that like a Goldberg thing? That's
Hogan. Yes.
Hogan. Big Hulk
By the way,
Hogan
one
fan.
of the worst Christmas movies of all time. But sometimes you gotta laugh at Christmas time. But yeah, like the other day I was like, I want to watch Hercules The Legendary Journeys. Boom. Tubi TV. They have just those obscure 90s, 2000s programs that you want to watch.
So maybe you start to sell live rights and next day rights to the same property owner, maybe in the case of Peacock and or Tubi. But then it's also been hyped to me that, well, maybe W would sell these rights to one of the Fangs. Do you know what a Fang is, Chris Gullo?
I do not.
It's a tooth that some pricks.
That's what I thought.
No, it is an acronym that stands for major tech companies. Do you have any guesses?
Amazon, Apple.
Yes. That's the two A's. There's two A's in Fang.
Okay. Oh, okay.
There's an F, there's an N, and
G
a
would
G.
be Google.
Google.
Yes, F would be Facebook. Oh, and the N, the N is escaping me. You'll have to give me the N.
Netflix.
Oh, that's right.
So, the most likely, if this is going to happen, I think this is less likely to be the case. Are there really Fangs that are really interested in these kinds of rights or the live rights? We sort of heard Nick Khan hype this, saying that maybe Apple TV is thinking about getting there and thinking about bidding for live sports rights at some time in the future. Maybe he didn't say this, but maybe by the time that our U.S. rights are up for renegotiation. Amazon is clearly interested in live sports. They've done a number of international sports rights deals. They've done a deal in the U.S. for Thursday Night Football. Would Amazon or Google's YouTube be interested in these rights. I would be slightly surprised, but maybe. And I could see strategically, from WWE's perspective, maybe taking a lower deal than you would get otherwise from other suitors for the sake of deepening a relationship with a business partner who may put pressure on your other business partners to bid more aggressively for your live rights in the years to come. But are these fan companies really interested in any of this content and any of these particular rights? I don't see any reason to say that they are, but maybe they are.
Yeah, it's day after stuff. I think if, hey, the rights of Raw was going up and the rights of SmackDown, I could possibly see, hey, we're going to do a live stream on Prime and Prime Video and all that. But for day after, I don't know if that would be a hot market for those fan companies.
And I think it's early still, but maybe by 2023, 2024, it's a different story. 2025, I think it's early to think about at least WWE content going to a streaming player. I think I do want to dwell on this too, that, as I now tweet the ratings, every week here, I encounter a lot of debate from, what did I say on Twitter early this morning? A lot of unacquainted man-children who are getting hostile with each other about TV data. You get a lot of people raising the issue, which makes sense, that, TV is a declining business. Linear TV is a dying business. And maybe it is, but it's still a very profitable business. It's certainly declining. Maybe the profits, the stack of profits are maybe getting smaller, but it is still a very profitable business. Are all these streaming is the future. Are all these streaming businesses profitable businesses? Some of them are. Netflix is. Is Peacock a profitable business? No. The game is to get consumer behavior, if you're at, say, NBC Universal, to take your very profitable cable business, which is declining. People are using it less and less over time. And to take this consumer behavior and this watch time and try to transfer some of it over to streaming, which is going to be more important in the future. So does it make sense to put Raw or SmackDown, which has got to be on a high reach platform? It's really important for WWE that they're able to be on a platform that has a ton of reach that people are already using. I don't think it's a good idea for WWE to go put Raw and SmackDown exclusively on Peacock right now. Maybe in 5 years, but not maybe in 10 years. Maybe not even then, but not right now. And it's not enough that Amazon is in, I'm not sure how many homes actually have Amazon Prime. It's a lot, right? There's more people in the United States who have, Amazon Prime than own a pet in this country, something like that, right? So it's a ton of homes. It's a majority of homes have Amazon Prime. But how many people are actually using Amazon Prime Video? Not as many. How many people are actually, something like 14 million people have user accounts for Peacock. Small percentage of those are actually using it on a monthly basis, let alone a weekly basis. But anyway, that's why I would caution some of these hot takes about how TV doesn't matter and ratings don't matter. This is still where the most profit is, in the video watching business, if you will. But anyway, by the way, these rights that we're talking about here for Hulu, probably in the single digits, maybe the low double digits of millions of dollars a year, probably single digits though. So this is, compare that to 205 million, 265 million for SmackDown and Raw respectively. So this is small money compared to those huge deals, which are WWE's biggest deals. So yeah.
All right. Moving on to Impact, and the rating of the Impact before their Slammiversary event, 109,000 total viewers with 26,000, in the 18 to 49. Your thoughts on that? A little bit of a slight dip from last week, but still better than, like I said, that snafu a couple weeks ago with the listings. But yeah, I mean, just a comparison, last week was 120,000 with 49,000, 18 to 49. So 18 to 49 took a pretty solid drop.
This is not a good rating for Impact. Impact has been declining over the last several weeks. Even let's throw out the program guide error issue on, what week was it? July 1st. Under 110 million viewers here, just under, it's 109 million viewers. A .02 in the demo. would be the lowest since, I believe, January. So that 18-49, I've been saying for weeks now, yes, total viewership is declining, but 18-49 is actually growing. But this is a really low 18-49 number. One data point, 1 week, and we'll watch to see if it's any different next week. But not a good number here for Impact. Although a lot of excitement coming out of the Slammiversary pay-per-view with Jay White showing up and switchblading people and promotions all over the place here on the Impact pay-per-view last night as we record this on Saturday. Today, Sunday. All
right, yeah, and they had a lot of surprises at Slammiversary, and we'll see how that affects the TV ratings. And speaking of surprise, Ring of Honor tried themselves with some surprises at the Best in the World pay-per-view, and we have an attendance figure for that, if you want to break down to that.
502 tickets out on what was the date here for Ring of Honors.
The 11th, Sunday the 11th.
The 11th, July 11th in Baltimore, Maryland. Capacity estimated by WrestleTix of 750, 526 tickets distributed. That would be a 70% tickets out rate. Yeah, that's all I really had on Ring of Honor, though. I don't have any other deep takes there.
All right, and we have some interesting news, international news, as you should say, that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau
said, our main man, Justin.
Yep, Justin Trudeau said on Thursday, Canada could start allowing fully vaccinated Americans into Canada as of mid-August for non-essential travel, and should be in a position to welcome fully vaccinated travelers from all countries by early September. And as they are starting to lighten up, I believe they're in stage 3 now of their restrictions. I am seeing a lot of independent wrestling shows being announced in Canada now. As the fans, I'm not sure if they are aware, we are very close to Canada. Like, I live 8 minutes from Fort Erie.
Yeah. So, I live very close to the Peace Bridge, which is the major bridge between Buffalo and Fort Erie, Ontario. In this last year and a half or so, I've been, every time I drive on the 190, you see the dystopian flashing digiboards, essential travel only to Canada. You can't go to Canada right now, and Canadians cannot come in here without jumping through some hoops. This means something, at least to us, as far as, can Americans start going over to Canada, to work indie shows? Not that Canadians would ever go to the United States, without proper papers, to work in any capacity. But wrestlers do have, the entertainers law, in Canada, and they're very much allowed to go and do short-term work, as wrestlers. So then maybe that'll be happening again soon. I sometimes I catch on the local news after SmackDown, Chuck Schumer out there, yelling at Canada to open up their borders. So.
But, what do you think this also means as far as shows up there and all that? I mean, I know they're still not in fully attendance as the Blue Jays are moving back there. I think there's only a portion of the stadium they're going to actually allow in, but Canada is traditionally a very good market for WWE. So I wonder when we start seeing that again.
Bizarro World. Are you sure Kevin Dunn wants to go back there? That people might not watch wrestling right. They might chant things.
Yeah.
But yeah, Toronto's a great market for WWE. AEW has am I right about this? AEW's never done a show outside the US.
Yeah, they have not done Canada yet.
Yeah, so hopefully COVID rates continue to go down. Hopefully the Delta variant does not ruin things, but hopefully we get events back in Canada soon, and maybe we can go back to Canada soon and work some wrestling.
Mm-hmm. I miss my wrestling buddies in Canada. But all right, any final thoughts this week here?
No, I don't think so. I feel like I talked a lot today. This past week on Patreon, I've posted the ratings. In many cases, the first to report the ratings. That's on patreon.com/Wrestlenomics. For $5 a month, you get access to all my locked posts, the deep analysis, breakdowns of all the big wrestling TV shows. There's this report about the Hulu deal coming to an end soon. It was also there. Had some details as well that we discussed about there being two weeks of NXT that are going to be preempted to Sci-Fi. you get access to the Wrestlenomics viewership spreadsheet as well. Thanks to all our subscribers who already do subscribe. We got over 150 this week, so growing every week, which we appreciate. If you like this podcast, feel free to give us a review on iTunes. You can follow Wrestlenomics on the internet at Wrestlenomics.com or on Twitter at Wrestlenomics. You can have arguments with children about TV ratings and get hostile with them and yell at them if you would like on my Twitter account at Brandon Thurston. I'm Brandon Thurston. Oh wait, I'm almost ending the show. My God. Plugs, Chris Gullo.
All right, I guess that's it. Plugs. First off, myself, as always, Chris Gullo on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can keep up on all the stuff like I'm ring-announcing MMA this upcoming Saturday in Lockport, New York for Ground Force Fights. We talked about Empire State Wrestling July 31st at Buffalo Riverworks. Then I'll be traveling to Messina, New York on Sunday, August 1st for New Breed Entertainment.
Oh, can we talk about this? ESW's going to be having a show where again?
Buffalo Riverworks.
Oh, wait, okay, but the Riverworks is in Buffalo. Like, you're just saying Buffalo because it's in the Buffalo region, or what's the actual municipality that this venue is in?
Oh, this is in the city of Buffalo.
Buffalo. Has there? This is only going to be interesting to you and me probably, but has there ever been an Empire State Wrestling show in Buffalo before?
Yes, there has, and I think the last time you might have been under a luchador mask.
No idea what you're talking about.
The Lucha Day explosion, and what was that, 2004?
September 2005.
Okay.
On Niagara Street, across the street from Top Supermarkets. There was a show, a one-off, at the, God, I don't remember the name of the building, but yeah, it was super hot inside. I wrestled twice. Yeah, that was a time in the life. God, 16 years ago. You know, we have somebody who is about to start his training at Grapplers because he's going to turn 18. And I'm like, oh my God, he wasn't born on the day that I started training.
That's mind-blowing, right? Also, I just want to plug my other podcast, Rediscovering the Indies. This coming Wednesday, we have a brand new episode about Main Event Championship Wrestling and John Collins. Lots of great stuff in there. This is a guy who took money from a Canadian investor who was apparently running a Ponzi scheme, much of the like of Bernie Madoff. And but he took this money and he ran a wrestling show at the ECW arena that was stacked full of names, and then checks started bouncing, and when guys wanted their money, when they knew he was going to be at a show next, his wife called in and said, oh, sorry, he had a heart attack. He's not going to be able to make it there. Which I laugh because it's been proven that it's not true. And yeah, this guy spent some time in jail, and you'll appreciate this, Brandon. In the typical independent wrestling way, the federal government kept trying to contact this guy, like, hey, give us the money back from this investor, because they already had this investor like convicted and everything, and the guy just ignored it, thinking it would go away, and it did not.
No. Did the collections agency get a hold of him?
The FBI. Here's a great thing. The FBI showed up at an independent wrestling show in Evansville, Indiana.
Really? So, what year is this?
The 2001. So I mean, I gave away a good chunk of the episode there, but we break down it all. There's lots of great stuff, not only from Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez that we go, but there's a lot of good stuff from, we actually have a No Holds Barred radio interview transcript with John Collins, like the day before the show, that we break down. There's a live testimonial from Bob McGee, who was actually at the show. There is a Brian Damage article breaking it down that we go through. There's a lot of great stuff on this, but I think it's one of those. It's not told enough, but yeah, John Collins, Main Event Championship Wrestling. He wanted to be the next super promotion. He predicted he was going to be number one in 36 months of running, that he was going to topple WWE. Technically, he lasted one show.
The darker side of the ring.
Yes. And so no one's heard of John Collins since 2004, but if it's anything like our previous shows, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have an email or a Twitter from either John Collins or somebody associated with him.
You're going to stir him up and he's going to start running again. That's what's going to
Yes. Once again, I am sorry. I'm not going to take the blame for XPW being back.
I think that's all for this week. You can follow me at Brandon Thurston. I'm Brandon Thurston.
I'm Chris Gullo.
Talk to you next time. Bye.